I hated school, and I want to talk about why. I remember even as a child just knowing that I'm put there to waste my time and attention and being forced into a mold to plug into society. Because you spend basically the majority of your working life being crammed together in a classroom with other traumatized children, and the only adults overseeing you are pretty much just there to add another huge layer of stress and academic pressure on top of it. Through my child eyes, it was just impossible for me to understand why are we being shoved into rooms where we sit statically for hours and hours every day and passively, in the absolute least engaging way, are given monologues about a wide variety of fields. Most of them either useless for adult life or just horribly impractical, especially with how nonsensical it's all arranged. Like, at no point in my life did I hate exercise more as I did when I was in school still, because it wasn't based on teaching you how to move your body well and why it is beneficial for humans. No, children immediately get taught to judge themselves and others based on their performance. And I'm not saying that this is universally a bad thing, but this theme of judgment and comparison is happening, from the start. So if you're not naturally athletic, what's going to happen is that you're going to spend about 1,000 hours of your life in physical education classes that don't teach you how to train, stretch, or move your body properly, but to hate exercise if you're not immediately good at it. And this theme, of course, is the majority of your childhood anyway. Constantly being judged, being compared, and being taught that the most important thing is to win and be the best. And that's why our whole society sucks. From the start, it was never about understanding values, morals, fairness, empathy. And saying these words, they almost sound like fairy tales at this point, right? I'm just sounding naive. I'm just being naive. That's just how things are, right? But if I'm sure that if you think back honestly to your childhood, I know that there was a point where you still cared and you saw things for what they were. We used to ask questions as children until the curiosity and open mindedness was punished right out of us by people who told us we will understand when we are older. And I guess I do understand now. I will never forget how often me and my fellow students were just in a crisis, thinking that what are we doing here? We have a billion things we don't understand about this society that nobody, cares to explain to us. And also, we can never explore or experience life in any way since we're almost constantly stuck in school, being forced to recite things that you don't truly understand anyway. It feels like you're in a cage, and all that the adults around you do is either force you to conform or they do care, but they really can't do anything about it either. And it could be possible that this is straight up done intentionally and not just by ignorance. Because even as a child, they overwork and overload you so that there is no chance you can come out of survival mode at any time and realize how you're actually just being trained to obey. Don't question, don't cause a scene, right? Care about very specific things and know just enough to be able to work, right? And grind and understand that whole idea, but not to question what ultimate purpose this all serves and who you're ultimately doing it for. That's also why we take children that need even more sleep than adults and force them to get up at ungodly early times when it's been proven for decades now that that wrecks recovery and regulation and productivity for a lot of children. Why? Because you guessed it, they're supposed to do that same shit for their entire life, right? And not ever question it. So we gotta start having them do that now. From the point I got into middle school, I was basically out of the house from 6 in the morning until about 6 in the evening until I graduated. and most of the time was spent trying to stop getting punished for my obvious exhaustion, overwhelm, fear, and lack of academic performance. And because I obviously, or it was not obvious to me at the time, at least I didn't understand what was going on, I must have been not really good at hiding all of that struggle and all of that pain because, well, it makes people victimize you. And yeah, that sucked even more. And basically, everyone who is not willing or able to fit into this mold or doesn't conform to the toxic social structures just gets ostracized and isolated. First of all, a lot of the time from their own parents, because they themselves still believe that punishment and withholding affection from their children is a valid way to raise a healthy human. And this, of course, leads to children getting traumatized and looking for ways of dealing with all of these heavy, painful emotions. And that's why school is a social war zone. And because I have ADHD, I was bringing basically a knife to a tank battle. My entire childhood was shaped by me being different and the fact that I did not know about it for sure until a year ago. And back then, all that happened is that I was, blaming myself for the issues I had. I was chronically burnt out, overwhelmed. I got bullied. I got beat up emotionally, physically for being different. Literally just for being different. Because, of course, different is bad, and thinking outside the box is bad, and asking why is bad. Right? It's not about that at all. How good are you at acting nice and behaved so the grown-ups don't punish you? How far are you gonna go with disregarding your moral compass and ignore the hundreds of moments you felt in your heart that this is not right? How often did you see something happen, someone beaten up, injustice, unfairness, emotional neglect, emotional or physical abuse, and you wondered, why is nobody doing anything? Well, you certainly could not, because you're just a confused child as well. And the children that were just by chance more gifted with the right attributes to, be liked and do well in the system, the teachers love these children. And instead of supported, everyone else gets compared, judged, and hated by grown adults, by the way. The few are decent human beings and try, bless them, I guess. Sadly, in this system, you're digging a ditch with a spoon while a truck dumps dirt on you every 10 minutes. You get a truckload of dirt dumped on you every 10 minutes. But a lot of teachers I had would have, huge egos, start beef and power games with children, were traumatized themselves, and just clearly not fit to be, supervising children. But, I get it, since they're just, stuck here with all of us as well. They share the same cage with us. They just have a bit more power than we had. Remember, I used to be extremely tired and overwhelmed for like years during my school years. I would spend the whole day dissociating and just just being in survival mode, basically, just to end up trying to learn whatever we had to learn at home alone. I did not have the ability to retain information in school, like in the setting that it was presented to me because of my ADHD. And that, of course, added just another layer of uh, complexity and struggle, because I had to figure out that whole thing for myself, which basically means I didn't figure out anything. I just, turned to unhealthy coping mechanisms, and I did my best at the time, not blaming myself. But it was rough. And the only joy I had during this time was when I found people who also struggled with fitting in. And I had some, great friends at school and generally good experiences too. But these were all made despite the absolute mess we were all subjected to. School is an absolute mess as a whole, and it just shows how the system does not give a single fuck about the young generations. It's about retaining power at the end of the day, and nobody wants a young, strong, and intelligent generation that stands up for human rights. At least not the people in power.